Everyone has a boiling point. I reached it and did something I would never have done before. Wait for the end, because everything becomes clear there. The first time I noticed it, I told myself it was nothing. Just a bracelet, silver, thin, with a small turquoise bead, wedged half under the passenger seat of her car, visible only if you were reaching for a dropped coin or an old receipt. The kind of trinket you'd expect a teenager to wear, not my wife who hadn't changed her style in years. Her taste was classic, neutral tones and clean lines. This wasn't her, but she saw me staring at it for a moment too long, and with a practiced kind of ease, she said, "Oh, I think Anna left that. She was in the car last week." Then she grabbed it, tossed it in the center console, and closed the lid with a flick that felt rehearsed. I just nodded and kept driving, but something new had settled between us. Quiet, like a radio left on low volume in a distant room. That night I couldn't sleep. She was curled up beside me, breathing steady, one hand resting loosely on my chest. But all I could think about was how fast she'd answered, how confident. There wasn't even a pause to recall which friend she'd pin it on. That bracelet hadn't been left by accident. It had been forgotten, probably in haste. 2 mornings later, as she sang softly to herself in the shower, some old indie tune she hadn't listened to in years, her phone lit up beside the sink. I didn't mean to grab it, I really didn't. But something stronger than curiosity pulled at me. Just a glance, I thought. A name I didn't recognize showed on the screen. AD. The message preview was short, but it tore something inside me with surgical precision. "Can't wait to be in Miami with you." I put the phone back where it was, face down on the marble. Then I walked out without a word. No confrontation, no accusations. Instead, I headed to the garage fridge, grabbed a beer even though it was still early, and slid into the driver's seat of my car. I didn't turn the key. I just sat there, one hand wrapped around the neck of the bottle, the other locked tight on the steering wheel. The engine didn't need to run. My thoughts were roaring loud enough already. Her second phone was in the glove box, the one she barely uses, mostly for work trips, she'd said. I knew the passcode. She never changed it. I opened the gallery, feeling like a man wading into fire with bare feet. The most recent photo stopped me cold. She was on a hotel balcony, somewhere coastal. You could see the curve of a beach below, the jagged shadow of palm trees. She was laughing, wrapped in someone's arms, leaning her head against a man I didn't recognize. His face was turned slightly, half hidden by her hair. But what froze me wasn't him. It was the shirt she was wearing, my shirt, the old thin white one she used to call her home shirt. She always said it was too personal to wear outside, that it smelled like safety, like me. Now it smelled like him. I didn't tell her I knew. Not that day, not the next either. I acted like the man she expected. Reliable, steady, boring. I still made the coffee in the morning, kissed her cheek before she left for work. She smiled back like everything was fine. And maybe for her it was. But inside me something shifted. A piece of the foundation cracked, just enough for light to seep through. It was cold, that light, hard, blinding. The next night I made dinner, a real one. Candles, wine, music low in the background. The whole theater of warmth. She was happy, even flirted a little, like she used to before the distance began growing between us, one forgotten weekend at a time. She talked about taking the kids to a nature park that Saturday, how we could bring the dog, make a picnic. I nodded, smiled when I needed to, but my hands didn't stop shaking. Not enough to notice, just enough to feel. I waited until dessert. Then casually I asked, "Hey, when was the last time you were in Miami?" She looked up, caught off guard for the first time in days. "Miami?" she laughed. "Never." "Why?" I didn't speak, just reached into my pocket, unlocked the second phone, and turned it toward her. The photo opened full screen. Her whole face collapsed. I watched it like a time lapse of a building being demolished. Her eyes lost their light first. Then the muscles in her jaw gave way. Her shoulders tensed. Every part of her wanted to speak, to lie, to soften the blow, to redirect. But the silence between us swallowed her excuses before they formed. I stood up slowly, walked behind her, and leaned down. I don't know what I'll do yet, I said, but I'll do something. Then I stepped outside, walked barefoot across the wet grass to the old wooden swing I built with my dad years ago. I sat there all night, didn't blink, not even when the stars began to fade behind the slow light of morning, because something in me had started to burn. Not with rage, not yet. It was something colder, focused, like the silence right before a storm reaches your street. She didn't come out that night. Not to the porch, not to the swing, not even to the yard where our son's toy dump truck had been lying on its side since Tuesday. I watched that truck the whole night like it meant something. The way the plastic was scuffed, the dirt crusted into the wheels. I thought about how easy it is to destroy something and how much longer it takes to build anything worth keeping. At dawn, I got up, stretched out my legs that had gone numb hours earlier, and went back inside. The living room was untouched. The kitchen lights were still dimmed, and she was asleep on the couch, curled up small, like someone hiding from themselves. Her face looked wiped clean of everything. No mascara, no confidence, no stories. Just skin and regret. I stepped over her carefully, like I might wake something venomous if I got too close. The kids didn't notice anything different. They were half asleep, bickering over cereal choices. I packed their lunches the way I always did. Apples, turkey sandwiches, a little note in each box they probably threw away without reading. She didn't say a word as I kissed our daughter on the forehead and brushed the crumbs off our son's shirt. Just watched with red-rimmed eyes like someone on the other side of a window. At work, I did something unexpected. I showed up early, too early. The sun was still dragging itself over the skyline, and only 2 others had clocked in. I walked into the office like it was any other Thursday, except I wasn't looking for the usual quiet. I was looking for him, a DR marketing director. I'd heard the name before, once or twice, when she mentioned new campaigns or company dinners, but I had never seen him, not in person, only in that photograph, in the folds of my old t-shirt, half smiling like he owned something sacred. I asked a few questions, light and polite, just a quiet request to our HR manager about a possible transfer. Just need a change of pace, I said. She didn't press. No one ever suspects the quiet ones of setting fires. By noon, I had a stack of forms for the transfer process, a desk waiting at a smaller branch an hour away. I didn't plan to move, but I needed the distance. I needed to feel like I had options again. That evening, after the kids were tucked in, their laughter still echoing faintly through the house from some joke I didn't hear, I walked into the living room where she was pretending to scroll through her phone. Her posture gave her away. Too stiff, too deliberate. I dropped a folder on the coffee table between us. She blinked like she didn't recognize it. Inside, a printed list of our shared expenses, credit card statements, airline ticket stubs, hotel bookings. 3 weekends she told me she was visiting her cousin. She cried during all 3 conversations when she said she missed us. I had highlighted everything in red. She didn't touch the folder, just stared at it like it was radioactive. Count, I said flatly. Count how many times you lied to me. Her lips trembled. She tried to say it was a mistake, that she didn't mean for any of it to go that far. I leaned in close, not shouting, not angry, just calm, the kind of calm that makes people scared. It wasn't a mistake, I whispered. It was a choice. She covered her face, shaking now, crumbling under her own breath. I turned and walked down the hallway, pulled the pillow and spare blanket off the bed, and laid them on the carpeted floor of the kids' room. There was something peaceful about the way our son snored softly and our daughter mumbled through her dreams. I lay there on the floor, arms folded, staring at the ceiling as if it might offer answers. For the first time in what felt like forever, I fell asleep before midnight, and when I woke up, I couldn't remember a single dream. The next day, I worked like nothing had changed. She messaged me 3 times. Do you want to talk tonight? Please let me explain better. I love you. I swear I do. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust my own voice anymore. When the person you've built a life with lies so smoothly, even silence feels contaminated. That weekend, she stayed quiet, made breakfast like always, asked the kids about their schoolwork, wore a hoodie around the house and barely looked me in the eye. She tried in small ways, cleaned out the pantry, folded the laundry without being asked, even ironed my work shirts. But every little act just looked like camouflage, a failed attempt to blend into the background of a life she broke. I wasn't going to let her paint over it. Sunday night, I stood in the garage again, same beer in hand, same silence filling the corners. I had the idea right then. Her birthday was coming up. Always a big deal. She liked grand gestures, photo collages, speeches about family. I was going to give her a celebration no one would forget, but I wouldn't raise my voice. Not once. I'd let the truth do the talking. And by the time it was done, she'd finally understand what it meant to see everything she built start to shake. I started planning the party 3 weeks in advance. No one suspected a thing, least of all her. She thought I was slowly thawing, letting the silence speak louder than confrontation, and that maybe the worst had passed. She smiled more often, touched my arm when she walked by, tried to kiss me like old times, but it all fell flat. My skin didn't react. My nerves didn't fire. I wasn't angry anymore. I was past that. What lived inside me now wasn't fire. It was strategy. I called her mother first, then her college roommate, then her aunt, the one who hadn't left the house since her stroke last year. She agreed to come the moment I mentioned it was a surprise. Everyone did. I made sure of it. Family, friends, co-workers. I even invited her team from the office, the ones she always bragged about mentoring. I played the role so well, even I almost believed myself. I rented a long table at her favorite garden venue, the one where they hung fairy lights above the hedges like stars caught in a net. I ordered her favorite red wine, had pasta catered from that place on 8th Street she claimed reminded her of Italy. I gave the florist strict instructions about the arrangements. White and yellow lilies, not roses. Roses felt too honest. Lilies were better for pretending, and she never saw it coming. Not once. On the night of the party, she walked in wearing that green dress I'd bought her 4 birthdays ago. Her eyes widened at the sight of the crowd, at the wave of applause that followed her name. For a second, I caught a flicker of something in her gaze, something almost innocent, like a child who believes in magic again for a split second before realizing the trick. But the trick hadn't happened yet. I played my part, greeted everyone, toasted the memories, held her hand long enough to fool every onlooker in the room. She laughed freely, maybe a little too freely, as if she knew she had narrowly escaped something that had never been real. I kept looking at her coworkers, scanning for him. AD wasn't there. That was fine. His name didn't need to be on the invitation. I had brought something better. After the cake was cut, after the clinking of glasses, the buzz of soft jazz rolling off the speakers, I stood up, raised my wine glass again. Everyone turned to look. The lights were dim, flickering slightly in the breeze, and for a second it really did look like a fairy tale. She was still smiling. "I just want to say something real quick," I began, watching her posture straighten slightly. "Thank you all for coming. It means a lot to her, to us. Birthdays are a reminder of the people who stand by you, who believe in you, who think they know you." A few chuckles, a few nods. "But sometimes," I continued, "you find out you've been living with a stranger." The room shifted almost imperceptibly. She blinked, the smile faltering for the first time all night. "She's been many things to me," I said. "Partner, friend, the mother of my kids, the woman who used to say I had the safest eyes in the world." I smiled softly, pretending to remember fondly. But apparently, dead eyes don't do it for everyone. She froze. Someone laughed awkwardly in the back, thinking I was making a joke. So I pulled out my phone. I recorded something. It's short. Her eyes went wide. No words, just frozen horror as I tapped the screen and let the voice play. "He has dead eyes. With AD, I feel alive." That was all it took. The room stopped breathing. Her mother dropped her glass, the shatter loud and final. Her aunt gasped. Her coworker covered her mouth. She stood slowly, knocking her chair backward. "Stop it," she whispered. But I didn't look at her. I placed the phone gently on the table, screen still glowing. Then I walked past her like she wasn't even there, and sat beside my son. He was mid-bite, spaghetti clinging to his fork. He looked up, confused by the silence around him. "It's gonna be okay, kid," I said quietly. "It finally will be." I didn't turn when she ran. I didn't chase. Her scream echoed across the garden as she stumbled into the parking lot, heels scraping against gravel, voice cracked and raw. No one followed her, not even her friends. No one dared speak. I sat still beside my boy. He leaned into me, chewing slowly, asking if he could have more bread. I nodded. Inside my chest, a pressure valve released. Not satisfaction, not victory, just the sound of something poisonous beginning to drain. She didn't come home that night. I didn't expect her to, but I wasn't done. There was one more storm I had to summon, and it was coming soon. It was 3 days before I saw her again. Not a word, not a call. The house was quieter than ever. I cooked, cleaned, got the kids to school, answered emails, and kept the rhythm of life moving like nothing had shifted. But something had, not just between us, in me. It was as if all the noise she brought into my mind had drained out overnight, leaving space where panic used to live. She showed up the evening of the third day. The sun was starting to drop behind the maple trees, casting orange streaks across the lawn. I was fixing the fence by the driveway when I heard her engine. Same car, same dent in the passenger side from when she scraped that parking pole last winter. But everything else was different now. She got out fast. She looked wrecked. Her hair was tied back like she hadn't bothered with it, and her face was streaked. Maybe from crying, maybe from no sleep. She didn't walk up to me. She ran. "Nick," she shouted, "I need to talk to you. Please." I stood and watched her without a word, wiping sweat from my brow with the back of my hand. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice cracking like the announcement alone might stop time. "I didn't know how to tell you, but it's true. I, I think I'm pregnant." I tilted my head. "Is it mine?" That stopped her cold. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I waited 5 long seconds. No answer. "All right," I said, turning toward the garage. "Stay right there." I came back with a plain white envelope. Her eyes followed it like it was a lit fuse. I handed it to her and stepped back. She opened it slowly, too slowly, and pulled out a form and a long strip of paper. The lab's logo at the top, my name on the bottom, a prenatal paternity test. Done at a clinic I picked myself, signed off by a physician I spoke with in person. The result? Not the father. The moment her eyes reached the bottom line, her knees buckled. She dropped right there on the grass, both hands shaking, the paper falling like dead leaves beside her. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. She started crying, not soft tears, full, desperate sobs, the kind that claw their way out when there's nothing left to hide behind. "I'll do anything," she gasped. "Nick, please, I'll fix it. Just don't shut me out. I made a mistake. A stupid, selfish, horrible mistake." "Not a mistake," I cut in, calmly this time. "A choice." Then I walked to the porch and closed the door behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't lock it with anger. Just clicked it shut and turned the bolt once, like sealing the lid on a box. She stayed on the front lawn a long time. I could hear her through the windows whispering to herself, pounding once on the door, then going silent. I didn't open it again. That night, the kids asked where Mom was. I told them she needed some time away. They accepted it. Kids are flexible. But as they watched cartoons and laughed at something animated and absurd, I stared at my reflection in the dark glass of the living room window. I didn't recognize the man standing there anymore. The next morning, I called a realtor, told her I needed a furnished apartment, something clean, nothing fancy, close to the kids' school. She found one by noon. I signed the lease by dinner time. I moved out that weekend. I didn't make a scene. No big truck, no stack of boxes, just a few suitcases, a few essentials, clothes, toothbrushes, toys. The dog came with us. He'd always followed me from room to room like a shadow. He knew where the center of gravity was. The kids were confused at first, but I made pancakes the next morning, and somehow that made everything feel okay. Kids don't care about ceilings and walls. They care about rhythm, about breakfast and bedtime, and whether someone shows up when they fall off the monkey bars. I could still do that. I could still be that. The only sound I didn't expect was the knock. Late one night, long after the kids had fallen asleep on the couch watching a movie I hadn't even registered, someone pounded at the door. I opened it slowly. She stood there, drenched in rain, eyes bloodshot, clutching a torn envelope. "You won't destroy me," she said in a voice that was barely hers. "I'm still yours." I stared at her without blinking. "No," I said. "You're just someone I used to love." She didn't scream. Not yet. But something snapped in her. She ran to the mailbox, ripped it open, started throwing my things on the lawn. Photos, notes, even a card from our last anniversary. She screamed names I hadn't heard in years. Names she used to say gently, now twisted into something ugly. I stepped out barefoot, walked into the wet grass, picked up the torn photos, held them for a second. Then I ripped them into smaller pieces, walked over to her, and dropped the shreds at her feet. "This is the last time," I said. "The last time you try to wreck my life." Then I turned and called the police. Calmly, precisely. She heard me spell out the address, and something in her eyes changed. Fear, regret, maybe the realization that she'd burned every last bridge. She didn't wait for the sirens. She drove off before they arrived. Fast, like she was trying to outrun the truth. But there's no outrunning it anymore. She disappeared after that night. No more texts, no calls, no late-night screams at the door. She simply vanished like a shadow cast in the wrong direction. A week passed, then two. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe the crash of it all finally convinced her to crawl back under the rock she tried to step out from. But people like her don't disappear. Not really. They circle. They wait. It started with an email. Plain text. Cold. "Through legal counsel, I will be pursuing custody rights." No greeting. No sign-off. Just that single line, dropped like a match into a pile of fresh kindling. I didn't respond. I sent the email straight to my lawyer, a man named Harris with a voice like crushed gravel and the patience of a monk. He skimmed it once, said only, "She's posturing. Let's see if she shows up." She didn't. Not to the mediation, not to the review meetings, not to the third rescheduled call where we offered supervised visitation. Nothing. She was making noise, but she wasn't walking into the fire. Still, I stayed alert. I knew her rhythm now. Panic, strike, disappear, rinse and repeat. In the meantime, I focused on building something that would last. The apartment became a home faster than I expected. I hung drawings on the fridge. I made French toast on Wednesdays. I found myself humming again while folding laundry, catching myself smiling for no reason, then remembering what peace actually felt like. I even rearranged the furniture. Not because I had to, but because I could. But night still crept in slowly, too slowly. After the kids went to bed, silence wrapped around me like smoke. I'd sit at the edge of my mattress with a book I couldn't read, flipping pages without absorbing a word. Sometimes I thought I heard her laughter, that sharp, manic kind that came out when she drank too much rosé. I'd blink and realize it was just the creak of the building settling. One night, around 2 a.m., I got a message from an unknown number. "You look so happy playing house, but I gave you everything. You'll see how empty that place really is without me." I didn't reply, but I changed all the locks the next morning. By the third week of her absence, I finally heard where she went. Through the lawyer, I learned she had moved 2 states over, rented a trailer, lost her job. One of her co-workers, someone I hadn't even noticed at the party, apparently told HR about her relationship with AD and handed over a copy of the voice memo. He was fired too, quietly, efficiently, no press. But the damage was done. Her reputation went with it. And still, she didn't stop. She filed paperwork to reopen visitation, then failed to appear. Again. Harris shook his head like a man watching a train derail in slow motion. "She's unraveling," he said. "And that's dangerous, Nick. Unpredictable people make loud exits." It made sense then why she kept trying to wedge her way back in through the only door I hadn't locked. The children. One afternoon, our son came back from school with a strange drawing tucked into his backpack. It wasn't his. The handwriting on the back was hers. "Mommy misses you. Tell Daddy I still love him. Tell him to stop hiding you from me." That night, I sat my kids down on the carpet and told them a story about truth. I didn't talk about lies or betrayal. I didn't weaponize their mother. I just told them that sometimes adults make promises they don't keep. But that didn't mean they were to blame. I told them love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. Sometimes it shrinks. Sometimes it gets quieter. But what I felt for them, that never changed. They asked if Mommy would ever live with us again. I said, not for a very long time. And they nodded, just nodded. They didn't cry. A few nights later, I found myself in the kitchen long after midnight. One lamp on, one mug of coffee half warm, and in front of me, the last photo I had of her. It was from 2 years ago. Her eyes were bright, caught mid-laugh, one hand on my shoulder. The kids blurred in the background. I stared at it for a long time. Thought about what it meant, about how much energy it took to keep holding on to ghosts. Then I reached for my phone, opened the gallery, found the image in my digital backups, and deleted it. No hesitation, no second thoughts. The screen went black for a second, just enough to show me my reflection. I looked older, sharper, not broken, just changed. A year passed in that moment, and suddenly I was standing in the middle of a quiet forest in Oregon, with the kids fast asleep inside the tent behind me. The fire crackled low. The stars blinked gently overhead, indifferent to everything. I walked to the edge of the river and sat on a rock, cold through my jeans. The wind hummed in the trees like an old song I barely remembered. I took a deep breath and whispered to no one in particular. We're home. Finally home. It started with the mailbox. Wednesday night. Quiet. I just put the kids to bed and was rinsing their paintbrushes when I noticed movement outside. At first, I thought it was the wind, the kind of shifting shadow you learn to ignore in quiet neighborhoods. Then came the soft click of the mailbox opening. I opened the front door slowly. She was standing there, hunched, arms buried in the box like she could pull something back from it. Her hair was a mess. She looked thinner, older, like the months had been cruel. She didn't notice me at first. Then she turned, eyes hollow. I still get mail here, she said. I said nothing. You can't erase me, she hissed. You think pancakes and paint nights replace me? I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I'm going to ask you once, I said. Leave. She stepped closer. I gave you everything, Nick, and you gave me silence. Dead eyes. That phrase again. She touched my shirt collar. You remember the first night you held me? You never let go. You were someone else then, I said. And you think you're better now? Cold and numb? Number, I'm finally awake. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Dad, my daughter called. Voice small. She stood at the top of the stairs holding a stuffed bear. My wife saw her and took a step forward. Let me talk to her, she whispered. No, she's my daughter. She's not your way back in. That cracked her. She screamed, a sound that didn't even resemble a word. Lights blinked on across the street. Still, I didn't move. She grabbed the shell-frame photo from the porch table and hurled it into the siding. It shattered. I stepped inside and locked the door. Through the window, I watched her pace in circles, muttering, pulling at her sleeves. Then she walked to her car, got in, and just sat there. Lights off, engine on. I called the police. She's not violent, I said, but she's unstable, and she won't leave. They came 15 minutes later. She didn't resist. She just stepped out quietly. One last look at the house, one glance at me. Then they took her away. The next morning, I filed the restraining order. The court approved it immediately. My lawyer asked if I wanted to pursue full custody, psychiatric evaluations, the works. I just want peace, I told him. You'll get it, he said, but don't assume she's finished. Not until you take everything she can't bend. I nodded. That night we ate mac and cheese and played cards on the floor. The kids laughed again. It didn't feel fragile this time. Later I sat alone on the couch, staring up at the ceiling. She was no longer a storm, just the damage it left behind, and I was already sweeping. Fall came fast. The leaves turned early that year, like even the trees were ready to shed what no longer served them. Mornings were cold. The kind of cold that made your breath visible and your memories sharper. Life had settled into a rhythm again. Not normal, just stable. But peace doesn't mean safety, especially when someone like her is out there, still convinced the story isn't over. I found the letter taped to the apartment door. Plain white envelope. My name scrawled in handwriting that was once familiar. Inside, a short note. You think this ends with paper? I'm not done. I'll never be done. No signature. No apology. Just a threat dressed as a promise. I didn't flinch. I called my lawyer. We logged it, passed it to the court. Another violation. Another strike. A few days later, my sister texted me, said someone had followed her home from the kids' soccer practice. A car she didn't recognize. Silver. Quiet. It drove past her house 3 times before disappearing. I knew what it meant. She was circling again, so I called her. One final time. I don't know what I expected when she picked up, but it wasn't silence. Not at first. Just the sound of her breath on the line, like she was waiting for me to speak a certain way. As if my tone might still open a door she thought was only shut, not sealed. I need you to hear something, I said, voice steady. This ends now. No reply. I have the logs. I have your letters. If you follow my family again, you'll lose every right you're still clinging to. Finally, she spoke. I just wanted... No, I cut in. You wanted control. You lost it. That's not love. That's addiction. She laughed. It was empty. So what now? You ride off with the kids and pretend I never existed? No pretending, I said. I've already deleted you. I hung up, blocked the number. The next morning we left town. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. Just packed the car, strapped the kids in, and drove west. Oregon again. A cabin this time. Big windows, a wide porch, trees tall enough to hush everything. We spent the first day hiking. The kids collected pine cones. I made grilled cheese on a camp stove. That night they fell asleep faster than I'd seen in months. And I stayed up, sitting on the porch alone, staring out into the woods. Her last words still echoed somewhere, but they were fading. Just noise now. Her voice no longer carried weight, no longer had shape. The next morning I logged into my cloud storage and deleted everything. Old voicemails, photos, screenshots, the recordings, the voice memo from that night, all of it. Then I opened one last folder, the one with our wedding video. I watched 30 seconds, the way she smiled, the way I believed it, and then I deleted that too. After breakfast, we built a fire. The kids roasted marshmallows even though it was barely noon. I let them. It didn't matter. Rules didn't matter here. We were far enough away now. Later, my son crawled into my lap, sticky with sugar, and asked if we were going home soon. I looked around, at the sky, the trees, the stillness. We are home, I whispered. And for the first time, I believed it. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.